my wife and kids back there, so they'll like the pretend introduction that I'm somewhat important. But anyway, welcome. Thank you so much for your attention. I realize that we are probably the second or third last to finish the presentation for the day. I will promise you that I will not take the full 20 minutes allocated. So this way, y'all can stretch up, go to the toilet. For those of you who want to get some prizes, MNG is just behind. If you haven't stopped by our booth, please do that. For those of you, as I mentioned earlier, my name is Alfred. I'm with MNG Investments. My agenda for today is very simple, all right? 3 things I want to talk to you about. Number 1, who is MNG? Right? A lot of people still, who's MNG, right? So we'll talk about that. Number 2, which I don't think I'm going to spend too much time on because a lot of people have been talking about it. Why invest in fixed income? Right? I think that's quite a simple one. I think you are most likely convinced. I will try to make that into 100% convinced. And then finally, the third thing that I want to talk about, we have a very strong bond fund, fixed income unit trust, that we think is a really good opportunity for you to add into your portfolio. So my goal is to tell you a little bit more about that fund, why that makes sense for your portfolio. So 3 things, okay? So let's jump into it. Number 1, okay, here we go. So who is MNG? Because I know a lot of your faces, and this is just for my marketing folks, right? Show of hands, be honest, how many of you even know MNG exists before today? And that's exactly what I want to see, right? A lot of you do not know about MNG, and that's okay. If you can see from our slide, on the top left-hand side, MNG can trace our history together with Prudential Insurance all the way back more than 160, 170 years, 1848. Because MNG used to be part of Prudential Insurance that we see. Today, it's a separate company, right? As an investment company, we've been around for more than 100 years, but they're all in UK, they're all in Europe. We've only set up a shop to sell funds to clients 6 months ago. So there's a reason why I only saw about 10 people raising their hand when I asked who's MNG. Now, I bring this up, I spend a little bit more time because at the end of the day, when you invest, there's a few things that you really should care about, right? 1, who the heck am I investing with? 2, can the fund perform? And 3, is there trust there? Right? So our legacy goes back a long, long time. We were the first investment company to launch a unit trust in the entire Europe back in 1931. So from a historical standpoint, we've been around a long time. And what we want to do now is come to Asia, specifically come to Singapore, show you some really good ideas, and hopefully you believe us, okay? On the right-hand side, just like any other asset manager, we have offices around the world. Why is that important for you? Very simple. I'm going to talk about a global bond fund later. When you have a global bond fund, you need to buy bonds from the US, the UK, Europe. So when you have people all around the world, that makes your decision-making much, much easier. All right? So how are we going to overcome this lack of name recognition on MNG? Very simple. We're here today. We have a booth back there. Those of you who haven't played a Whack the Mole, please play the Whack the Mole and win yourself a shoe bag. We are doing it, or we've done advertising in Raffles Place MRT. If you go on LinkedIn, you'll see our advertising there. Straits Times, Business Times. We're trying to get our name out there. All right? For those of you who are still thinking, Alfred, what is MNG? Or what does MNG stand for? Stands for Municipal and General. So back in 1931, when we launched the first unit trust, that was the name of that first unit trust, right? But today, we're full-fledged. We have funds investing in bonds, investing in stocks, investing in private markets, all that. Okay? So that's just a little bit more about MNG. I hope you all can understand that we are new in Singapore, but from a legacy and historical standpoint, we've been around for a long, long time. Okay, second thing I'm going to spend time on today is on why should we invest in fixed income, right? You've seen earlier, you've heard, what the Fed is possibly going to do, maybe cut rates 2, 3, 4 times next year or this year. Interest rates are very high. Government bonds, very high. And that's really my juice for why investing in fixed income. Most of us here, okay, I don't see too young of a face here, which is good. We remember when interest rates were 1, negative in some of the countries, right? And that has changed the past 2 years, okay? So let's go straight into it. I know a lot of you, my wife included, we are very scared of investing. So for the longest time, we put all our money in fixed deposit, all our money in money market, all our money cash account and making zero, right? Today, cash, deposit, money market are doing good. They are averaging about 2.5%, 3.5%, right? So you are at least getting some kind of return. But the thing is, if most of you are long-term investors, and I think you are, when I say long-term, we're talking at least 5, 10 years, 15 years, some of you very young, 30 years, cash investing is the lousiest return. Fixed deposit, money market, from a long-term perspective, talk to your advisors, you're not going to get a nice return. In fact, you might even lose to inflation, which we all know the past year or two, inflation, whether it's chicken rice or whether it's anything that you buy from a car standpoint, it's gone up. So cash, not so good on a return. So what do? You need to invest in either stocks or bonds. My job today is to tell you bond investments make the most sense, all right? Okay, from a bond investing, you can always buy corporate bonds, you can buy high-yield bonds, you can buy government bonds. In the past, government bonds have lousy returns. 3 years ago, if I'm up here and talking to you, you will laugh at me and say, get out of the stage, because government bonds at that time, probably at 1, 2, less than 1. Today, as you can see, this is 4.3, but this is as of a few months ago. It's now close to 4% when you look at the 5-year Treasury, the US Treasury, right? And it's reflected good and bad things, right? If you have loans, your interest rates have gone up. If you have, money in deposits, it has also gone up, right? But in general, historically, as you can see on this chart here, government bonds we're at a very nice stage where the yields are very attractive. And even though the Federal Reserve in the US have come in and said, we are planning to adjust interest rates possibly down, the thing is, who knows? And I'm not going to be here pretending to you and say, we think it's going to adjust 3, 4 times. But I can tell you this. The rates for government bonds have not been so high for a long, long time. So it's really important for us to lock in this kind of return, okay? Now, I show you just now, the previous page was the US, which is the left-hand side. It's a global phenomenon, all right? Whether it's German Bund, whether it's UK Gilt, all of them have gone up, which is good, because when you're investing in bonds, right, what you want the return to be is to make sure that they give, if you promise a certain amount of money, they pay you the interest. And that's what's been happening, okay? So what? I guess, one of the things that we always get is, Alfred, so what if interest rates have gone up? Okay, good. So what I want to try to tell people is, if we look at the fund that we are trying to position today, which is an optimal income fund, and the fund's been around since 2006, so we're talking about at least 17 years of history. When we look at this fund, and we try to see if there's a trend, right? If something of a trend going on, usually when you get a very beautiful, strong, high yield, interest rates, okay, elevated yield, what you see on the right-hand side where we put a blue square is that the next 12 months of returns, very, very beautiful. Now again, I can't be here and tell you that, oh my God, it's going to be double-digit, triple-digit return, but I can tell you on a trend, usually when rates are high, which they are today still, investing in a bond fund, we use ours as an example, the chances of you getting a strong return in the next 12 months is there. Okay? So, a quick summary on what I just talked about from why fixed income makes sense. Number one, beautiful entry point today. All right? Rates are very nice. Rates are very high. You got to capture this opportunity. Valuations are very compelling. But more importantly, as I mentioned, number three, historically, we don't see such a high yield. This is a really good time to capture it. And then finally, number four, it goes back to what I said earlier. If you're only investing for 1 month, 2 months, great. Stay in money market, stay in deposit, get the 3% return. But for most of you, you're investing for the long term, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years. Don't get 2 or 3% return. That's lousy. You want to get higher. And to get higher, go into bond funds, okay? And which bond fund? There's so many, all right? So my job now for the next section is to tell you why the optimal income fund from M&G makes sense, okay? So usually the first thing people ask me, okay, Alfred, you do a lot of talking already. I like your fund, but let's face it, I'm not buying it because of your face or your talking points. How did you do, right? How was the return of the fund? Last year, the blue line, the green line, 12.7% total return for the optimal income bond fund. So this is something that we're very proud of. This is something that we've been preaching across of 2023. From January until December, we've been telling people, please don't just sit in money market, don't just sit in deposit, put your money into action. And we're very happy to say that it has done well, right? The fund can invest, whether it's government bonds, corporate bonds, high-yield bonds. But the thing that we're so proud of, if you compare on the right-hand side, those are benchmarks representing, purple would be government bonds, blue would be the corporate bonds, and then yellow looks like high-yield bond funds. The way the fund manager has done is they've been able to dynamically move between all three of them to get a very strong return. Okay? So, how do they do it? How do they do it? The fund's very simple. On the left-hand side, this is truly one where we outsource everything to the fund manager. It's a $10 billion fund. The manager's responsibility is very simple. You can do anything you want. You can buy government bonds. You can buy investment-grade bonds. You can buy high-yield bonds. You can even buy equity. Today, 0% in equity because there's no reason to go into equity when you can get very strong returns from bonds. Okay? So, and then duration. So they can buy long-dated bonds. They can buy short-dated bonds. We really outsource everything to the fund manager. Okay? In the middle, we're just showing you, it's a big investment universe that they can pick from, right? They can, if you look at the investment universe, we're talking about almost 50 trillion of things that they can buy. So we're not scared what they are going to buy. On the right-hand side, this is the neutral allocation. If the manager falls asleep and he says, I just want to do autopilot, that's what they do. Luckily for us, and luckily for y'all, that usually doesn't happen. A lot of times, they'll favor one thing over the other. Today, they favor government bonds. Because why? Government bonds, as I mentioned, historically very high. And if we're going to get high returns from something safe, why not? Okay, here's the allocation. One of the things that we are very happy about this fund is how diversified it is, right? The idea of saying, I outsource everything on bonds to this one fund, the scary part to me is what if you put everything in one thing, and we don't want that. So a lot of the bond funds that you see out there today, the global bond funds, if you peel under the cover, it's actually more of a US-centric fund. They buy 50, 60, 70, 90% in US bonds. For us, yeah, we like US, but maybe not all of that in US. So we're about 40% US, we're about 20% in UK, and then the rest in Europe. One question I had just now at the booth, Alfred, how about Asia bonds? Do you like Asia bonds? We do, but for us, we are a UK-centric company. We're getting very good value without having to go to Asia. So we're going to stay with that for now. And I know most of you, we're sitting in Singapore, we're sitting in Asia. We already have maybe some Asian bond allocation. So this is a good diversifier for you. On the right-hand side, 77% of this fund is made out of government bonds or investment grade, which means very high quality, which means if we are wrong, if this year turns out to be lousy, crappy, we have a hard landing, recession comes, so what? A big chunk of this portfolio is in very safe, very secure bonds, okay? And then this is just to show you that the dynamic nature of the fund, right? I mentioned earlier, top left-hand side, they go into government bonds. Top right-hand side, they go into investment-grade, high-quality corporate bonds. Bottom left, high-yield corporate bonds, and then equity. Again, I mentioned equity, currently it's 0 because they are getting enough good return from the 3 other buckets. I show you this because very dynamic. They don't just stay still. The manager will try to go into things that they believe have good value. I'm going to wrap it up. M&G Optimal Income is a fund that is truly flexible, can go anywhere. Last year, it did very strongly, returned almost 13%. It's got a fixed distribution share class today paying 7%. It's a $10 billion fund, meaning you're not just going to go in and then we'll explode. It's a fund that's been around since 2006. And we're proud and we're happy that at least there's a new idea for your portfolio. I put that strong performance, experienced PM, but really when it comes down to it, just know that M&G has been around for a long time. We hope you stop by our booth for any more questions. Thank you for your time. Happy New Year again. Enjoy your time. Bye-bye.